I think that was the innuendo.
Are you going to be the president's human sock puppet?
Senator, absolutely not.
Are you going to be anybody's human sock puppet?
No, I'm honored the president nominated me for the position, and I'll be an independent actor if confirmed as chairman of the Federal Reserve.
My friend, Senator Warren, and she, as my friend, suggested that, I wrote it down, you will use your power, you might use your power to bail out your friends if they get in trouble.
Today's hearing was supposed to be a routine confirmation test for Kevin Warsh, President Trump's nominee to chair the Federal Reserve. Instead, it became a public referendum on one of the most sensitive questions in American economic life. Can the Fed still act independently when the president openly demands lower interest rates and says he expects his nominee to deliver them? Warsh insisted he would not be anyone's puppet. But in Washington and on Wall Street, the issue is no longer what nominees say. The issue is whether anyone believes them. The stakes are enormous. The Federal Reserve sets the tone for borrowing costs across the economy. Mortgages, credit cards, business loans, markets, inflation expectations, and investor confidence all move when the Fed moves. If traders start to believe monetary policy is being dictated by politics instead of data, the credibility of the institution itself can crack. And once that credibility is damaged, even the right policy decisions become harder to trust.
Your hand in.
Yeah, kind of like this.
Yes.
What's a human sock puppet? Isn't a human sock puppet somebody will do what somebody else tells them to do?
I think that's what the senator was trying to suggest. I think that was the innuendo.
Are you going to be the president's human sock puppet?
Senator, absolutely not.
Are you going to be anybody's human sock puppet?
No, I'm honored the president nominated me for the position, and I'll be an independent actor.
That line hit because it distilled the entire confirmation battle into a single insult. A Fed chair is supposed to be insulated from short-term political demands, especially from presidents who almost always prefer lower interest rates. Warsh tried to normalize that pressure, saying presidents tend to want cuts, and that elected officials can express their views. But that answer only sharpened the concern. If political pressure is expected, then independence must be visible, provable, and immediate. And this is where the hearing became more than theater. On the very day Warsh was defending his independence, President Trump reportedly told CNBC he would be disappointed if Warsh did not cut rates quickly once confirmed. So the market heard two messages at once, the nominee saying there was no deal, and the president publicly describing exactly what outcome he expects. That contradiction is the real story.
And he's made clear that you are his sock puppet.
Professor, what's a sock puppet?
I heard the reference from Senator Warren.
Yeah,
earlier.
what is it?
I'm not sure I know. Okay. I think it's that thing you stick your hand in.
Yeah, kind of like this.
Yes.
What's a human sock puppet? Isn't a human sock puppet somebody who'll do what somebody else tells them to do?
I think that's what the senator was trying to suggest. I think that was the innuendo.
Are you going to be the president's human sock puppet?
Senator, absolutely not.
Are you going to be anybody's human sock puppet?
No, I'm honored the president nominated me for the position, and I'll be an independent actor if confirmed as chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Warsh's defense rested on a clean, repeated claim. Donald Trump never asked him to predetermine an interest rate decision, never demanded a commitment, and never extracted a promise. That is one of the most important lines from the hearing, because it is the nominee's most direct answer to the suspicion that his appointment came with conditions attached. But independence at the Fed is judged by more than a denial. It is judged by what happens after the first real conflict, and there will be one. If Warsh is confirmed and economic data do not support rate cuts, the White House pressure campaign will not disappear. In fact, that is when the real test would begin. PBS's David Wessel put it bluntly. Warsh will be judged by the Powell standard, whether he can resist presidential pressure as firmly as Jerome Powell did.
In a 2019 interview with Bloomberg, you said monetary policy is important not for the decision it makes, but for reasons it gives for the explanations. Mr. Warsh, the Federal Open Market Committees, or that the Fed sets U.S. monetary policy through interest rate decisions at those meetings, do you commit to maintaining the current practice of holding a meeting at least once every 8 weeks, yes or no?
Senator, by statute, as we talked about in your office, I believe the statute requires a minimum of 4 meetings, but 4 is not enough. So having more meetings than that is appropriate. But I've not even begun to look at the meeting schedules for 2027 and beyond, of course, subject to confirmation.
Okay. So then, do you commit to holding a press conference at least on the day of the FOMC meetings?
Senator, right now, press conferences are held periodically. If you ask me my true personal opinion, right now, Fed chairs and other central bankers around the FOMC, they speak quite frequently. There is no lack of transparency. But I would say this, I think truth-seeking is more important than repetition. And if one has a press conference, one wants to deliver some important news.
Perfect.
So
and
I
to follow up on that, then, would you commit to taking questions at those press conferences?
If a press conference were held, I think it would be incumbent to hear what the reporters of the day had in mind.
Thank you. I'm glad, our personal meeting regarding this was very enlightening. Earlier today, you said to Senator Kennedy that President Trump never demanded you to cut interest rates in your job interview. Is that your sworn testimony?
That is, Senator.
Okay. Well, someone here is lying then, because it's either you or President Trump. Because in an interview with the Wall Street Journal of December 12th, President Trump confirmed that he pressed you on your commitment to support interest rates cuts. And I quote, during a 45-minute meeting with Warsh on Wednesday at the White House, the president pressed Warsh on whether he could trust him to support interest rate cuts if he were chosen to lead the central bank. According to people familiar with the meeting, Trump in the general interview confirmed that, repeating, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter for the record the Wall Street Journal article, December 12th. Trump says he's leaning towards Warsh or has it to lead the Fed. So, this brings up an issue of credibility at this point. Who's lying here? Is it you or the president? Because the president confirmed that he did ask you to cut interest rates.
Senator, there's, of course, a third alternative. You cite a couple of reporters for a leading financial newspaper. I recall reading that story at the time.
Did you issue a correction?
I think those reporters either need better sources or better journalist standards.
Did you ask for a correction?
There are things in the newspaper, Senator, I see all the time that don't strike my ear as correct.
So it is, in your opinion, that the president then is lying when he said he did not ask you?
I can only repeat to you, Senator, what I said to several of your colleagues.
So you did not? You right now, under sworn testimony, are saying just to right now that the president of the United States in that job interview did not ask you to cut interest rates?
The president never asked me to commit to interest rate cuts at any particular meeting over the period of my tenure at the Fed. He didn't ask for it. He didn't demand it. He didn't require it. And nor would I have ever done so.
So if these reporters come back and say to do another follow-up on this and they confirm what they heard, what will your response be?
Well, my response would be what I suggested to you a few moments ago. As I read that story in real time, I remember thinking they either need better journalistic standards or better sources.
So, here's my problem, Mr. Chair and colleagues. And Mr. Warsh, I think you're incredibly qualified. A lot of us are actually worried about the integrity of the Federal Reserve. We're worried about what this means for the economic markets, and we're worried about what this means for inflation. We're worried about your independence, and now we're hearing direct contradictions whether or not you were directly asked by the president to cut interest rates, and you're saying no, and he's saying yes. And I think for a lot of us, there's a question now of credibility. And I think there's a real reason why many of us are not voting no. As a matter of fact, until you verbally spoke to Mr. Kennedy and answered his question, he did not the president did not ask you to cut interest rates, this was not even going to be brought up. So there's definitely right now a true question about who is lying here. It's either you or it's the president. I yield back.
Then came the second vulnerability, money. During the hearing, senators pressed Warsh over a fortune reported at more than $100 million, asset disclosures, and a required ethics divestiture plan. Warsh said ethics officials cleared him, that he had agreed to sell all of his financial assets, and that he would place proceeds into plain vanilla holdings. That promise matters because a Fed chair's personal balance sheet can become a credibility issue just as quickly as a political one. Elizabeth Warren pushed the issue harder, arguing that the next chair must have no financial conflicts, and complaining that Warsh had not publicly revealed enough detail about assets she said the public deserves to understand. This did not just create another awkward moment. It expanded the story from political independence to financial transparency. A central banker under suspicion on both fronts starts any tenure with a trust deficit.
Professor, what's a sock puppet?
I heard the reference from Senator Warren.
Yeah, what
earlier.
is it?
I'm not sure I know. I think
Okay.
it's that thing you stick your hand in.
Yeah, kind of like this.
Yes.
What's a human sock puppet? Isn't a human sock puppet somebody who'll do what somebody else tells them to do?
I think that's what the senator was trying to suggest. I think that
gonna
was
be
the innuendo.
Are you going to be the president's human sock puppet?
Senator, absolutely not.
Are you going to be anybody's human sock puppet?
No, I'm honored the president nominated me for the position, and I'll be an independent actor if confirmed as chairman of the Federal Reserve.
My friend Senator Warren, and she, as my friend, suggested that, I wrote it down, you will use your power, you might use your power to bail out your friends if they get in trouble, kind of like President Biden did with Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. She didn't say the last part, I just did. Are you going to do that?
No, Senator.
Okay. The ethics folks, they've cleared you, but they said you got to sell some assets. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And these assets that you have, you can't just hold a yard sale, can you?
No, not for most of them. Sir.
Okay, so it takes a reasonable period of time, right?
Yes, sir.
And you've promised to sell them, right?
I did.
And if you don't sell them, we'll know, and the ethics folks will know, right?
Yes, I'd be in violation of the ethics agreement if I refused to sell them.
But you're going to sell them, right?
Yes, Senator, I will.
Okay. Can we agree that politicians have the right to offer you advice about what to do with interest rates?
Senator, we can agree, and it's not something that I would shy away from. I've heard many senators from this very committee in years past express strong views on interest rates.
Okay.
Humble central bankers should be listening and then making their own decisions.
Some politicians matter more than others. And generally speaking, presidents matter, their opinion matters more than, say, a senator. President Trump has offered his opinion about what you ought to do with interest rates. Is that right?
Senator, he has not made his opinion on that a secret to anybody.
Yeah. And every president has that you're aware of.
Yes,
Hasn't it?
and they all tend to be in the same direction, Senator Kennedy.
Okay. Now, the problem is, can we agree that your credibility as Fed chairman is the most important thing you have?
It's the most important thing to me, it's the most important thing to the institution, and it's the most important thing to the successful conduct of policy.
Okay.
If the
that's
markets
that's a
think
yes, right?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. The problem is that President Trump has said he's not going to appoint anybody who wouldn't agree to lower interest rates. Have you agreed with the president that you're going to lower interest rates?
Senator, I'm glad you framed it that way. The president never asked me to predetermine, commit, fix, decide on any interest rate decision in any of our discussions, nor would I ever agree to do so.
So the president has never sat you down, looked you in the eye, and said, here's the deal, Scooter. I'm going to appoint you, but you got to agree to lower interest rates. That didn't happen, or it did happen?
The president never once asked me to commit to any particular interest rate decision, period, and nor would I ever agree to do so if he had, but he never did. I was honored he nominated me. Like everyone else in the committee in the world, I've heard his view on interest rates. It sounded very similar to me to every other president in economic history that I've studied.
Okay. I've got one more question because I'm about to run out of my parliamentary inquiry time. I've heard your argument the last few months about artificial intelligence has made us so productive, labor so productive that companies don't have to raise prices. Therefore, inflation isn't a problem. Therefore, rates can be cut. Do you really believe that right now?
No, that is not how I would characterize the story on AI.
Okay, but you've said what I just said, haven't you?
I've said that this is the most disruptive moment in modern economic history in the U.S. and the world. I've said that artificial intelligence, AI, short
Okay,
for
let me
American
stop you
ingenuity,
because
can have a big
the
effect.
chair's going to cut me off.
Oops, sorry.
Here's my worry, that a lot of this stuff about artificial intelligence making us more productive is a bunch of hype by people who want to sell stock in an IPO. Okay, I'd be careful there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
But the hearing also opened a third front, policy itself. Warsh came in promising what he called regime change at the Fed. He argued that the institution failed badly during the inflation surge and said reform is needed in the Fed's frameworks, its communications, and even how it measures inflation. He wants a lower-profile central bank, less public signaling about future rate moves, and a more disciplined focus on price stability. That message will resonate with critics who believe the Fed missed the inflation threat and then spoke too loosely for too long. But it also raises another question. Is Warsh trying to restore discipline, or is he preparing the political case for a more radical reshaping of the central bank? When a nominee talks about institutional reform while also defending himself against accusations of presidential alignment, every proposed change starts to look like part policy and part power struggle. Near the end of Kennedy's questioning, the conversation turned to artificial intelligence. Kennedy suggested that some of the optimism around AI-driven productivity sounded like hype from people trying to sell stock in an IPO. Warsh pushed back on the simplified version of that argument, but still described AI as one of the most disruptive moments in modern economic history. That exchange matters because it shows where the next Fed debate may be heading. Not just whether rates should go down, but what new economic assumptions will be used to justify those moves. This is where smart viewers should slow down. A nominee can deny political pressure, promise ethical compliance, and argue for institutional reform all in the same hearing. But the true test is coherence. If lower rates are eventually defended on the basis of productivity, technology, or a new inflation framework, critics will ask whether those are genuine economic judgments or post hoc rationalizations for a political demand that was visible from the beginning. Kevin Warsh survived the hearing's sharpest lines, but he did not erase the deeper concern hanging over this nomination. The question is not whether he can say the word independence. He did. The question is whether markets, lawmakers, and the public will trust that independence when the White House starts demanding outcomes. And because the president has already made those expectations public, that test may come faster than anyone expected. In the end, this hearing exposed the three things that will define Kevin Warsh's path to the Fed: pressure, money, and credibility. Pressure from a president who wants lower rates, questions about money and disclosure that could shadow his confirmation, and credibility, the single asset every Fed chair needs before markets will believe a word they say. Warsh told senators he would not be anyone's sock puppet. Now Washington waits to see whether that line becomes a reassurance or a foreshadowing.